Something. She's trying to fix her phone. She's obsessed with this fact right now. This RCS messaging.
I had the thing and it was taken away from me.
It is really insulting that the moment that Apple products finally get it, hers no longer works.
I blame Nick.
In love with movies, in love, in love,
Dani and Nic.
in love with movies. Da-da-da.
Welcome, movie lovers, to In Love with Movies.
I'm Dani.
And I'm Nick. And I'm getting blamed for everything right now. And what is it that we do on this podcast where you blame me, Dani?
We talk about movies and what else, Nick?
And love. Imagine that. It's right there in the title of the podcast. That's right. We talk about relationships and how they have framed us and what our sort of theories and philosophies are on love. And then we talk about how movies have shaped that love or shaped who we are as people.
I like that you also just got real into it. I thought we were fully still explaining things to our guests, and then you just cut everyone off. And
no, we
are.
We were done with the explanation, and I had given the whole spiel. And before I introduced them, I had said that I was going to need to let our movie lovers know some changes that are happening. So. Those of you who are watching, because you can watch this on YouTube.
I've never watched it.
And Spotify. You've never listened. That doesn't make a difference.
True.
That's not that impressive for you. Those of you who are doing that, you probably are staring at their lovely faces right now, but I'm not going to let them speak for a moment until I get through the things that I want to update our listeners on. So listeners, right now, if you are a normal follower, you may have noticed this is not coming out on the last Tuesday of the month the way our podcast normally does. This is the beginning of season 6. We've made it here. It's the start of our 6th year trying to do this together, and even more than that we've been together, and so this is sort of that anniversary, but it's now not going to fall on that because we're going to change things up this year. We've done it for 5, and that's been enough of the way we were doing it. We're gonna keep things a little bit spicy, as they say. So the way that's changing now is we will no longer have a regular release schedule. That's one change. You may have some months where you get 2 podcasts in your feed. You may have some months where you get no podcasts in your feed. We are going to release them for special occasions and try to give previews where we can. So for example, stay subscribed, because next month, and actually it'll probably be this same month, we will have a special Halloween episode where we will have some past guests on Comic Book Couples Counseling. We have that booked and planned, and hopefully that therefore goes through because it's not yet in the can. But that's 2 episodes might come out in October, since this is not coming out in September the way that it would normally. And we'll see if we end up with 12 episodes at the end of the year. Maybe it'll be 10, maybe it'll be 15. Who really knows?
I have 2 questions. Why are you talking like that? And also, why do you remind me of Perd Hapley when he's like, the thing that I am going to explain is... Anyways, so yeah, things are changing. We have a kid now. Let's introduce our guests.
Also...
Oh my God.
This should now be in 1080p instead of 720. I just wanted to get to that too.
Nothing to me.
That doesn't surprise me either. Anyway, okay, well, yes, I do want to get to our guests. These are some very close friends of ours. In fact, you may have heard us on a previous episode, see Return of the King, us discussing these individuals because they host a Hobbit night every single year where we watch all of the extended editions of The Lord of the Rings. It is Ryan and Erica Reetz. Welcome!
Hey, everybody.
Hey, thanks for having us.
We are very happy to have you two.
And we're excited to be here.
Yeah.
We're sad that we can't talk about Lord of the Rings. But,
I know. They wanted to re-watch Lord of the Rings. Tree? Is it
well, yeah, it wasn't clear in the previous recording where you guys covered Lord of the Rings whether or not it was the extended edition that you were watching, so we figured we could do that, but...
Ryan did legitimately pitch that to me, which I responded, I can see a case to be made. I'm not sure Danielle would be willing to do that.
I watch them once a year at your guys' house on January 1st. And Nick said you have Lord of the Rings night. He's discounting. This is day. This is full day. Erica is the most planning person I've ever met. And so there's a spreadsheet that comes out in like probably November. I don't know. It's like super early. And everything is down to the minute. It is the most organized Hobbit day I've ever been to. It's also the only Hobbit day I've ever been to, but it's very organized and very long. And we watch all the extended versions.
Indeed. And my favorite part is the fact that we all, it's like an all day long themed potluck where, you know, there's the different meals. And for those who are Hobbit fans, you know that we're talking about like breakfast, second breakfast, 11sies, supper, dinner, and all of those are different meals that take place throughout the entire day. So it's a pretty good time. It's a good time.
Facts.
But we're not talking about that because Danielle wouldn't let us. So to give a little bit of preview for the second half, Reetz's, would you tell us what movie we are going to be covering in this second half of the podcast?
Yeah, we're going to be covering Game Night.
That's right.
Which I was very excited. But we brought Erica and Ryan on, or as you might see, Rika.
This is their ship name.
Their couple name.
Yep.
Not just because they're very good friends of ours and we knew they'd be flexible and we appreciate them. But they also just got married.
We did.
We did.
Oh, yeah. I got one of those too now.
No, not that one?
No,
okay.
one didn't, but,
I'll be editing that later. Anyway.
So,
The
yeah,
reality of marriage.
we want to hear all about that. How was marriage?
So tell us your love story. How long have you guys been married?
Who are you?
And a
Where
little bit of
are
a
you?
brief where you met and how you got to this point.
Yeah, okay. You want to start or you want me to?
Yeah, well, we've been married just shy of 2 months, so we're still very fresh.
Lots of applause here. I like it.
But we have a little bit, we are a dating app success story, so we met on Hinge.
There you go.
But we had a little bit of an unconventional first couple of dates. Our
love this
first
story.
3 dates, which we met late 2017,
November 2017.
November 2017. And our first 3 dates took place over 4 months.
About equally spaced between.
And the first one was because Ryan was super busy wrapping up his master's thesis.
I can't remember if it was thesis or if it was finals. But yeah, it was like we went on a date. Well, we went on a date right before Thanksgiving, and that was our first date. And then it was Thanksgiving, which for your family is like a week-long event. And then after that, I was prepping for finals. And I think you had something going on at work too. So then we didn't we didn't have our second date until right before Christmas.
And then after that, I had someone pass away in my family and told Ryan, like, I just need some space, do my own thing. And he 100% thought I was ghosting him, and that because it was a very bad date. Like, let's just be honest. It was mostly my fault, but like
The first one didn't go well. Okay.
Did great.
Yeah.
But yeah, then after that, like I was like, yeah, let's go on a third date. You reached out. You were like,
well, yeah.
Is there a chance here?
I reached out. We didn't talk for like, I don't know, maybe a week after the second date. I reached out and I was like, because the first date was great. I was like, well, let's give it one more try. And you were like, I'm sorry, I just had something happen with my family. I can't think about this right now. And I was just like, okay, typical dating app response of, don't want to tell you I don't want to see you again. So I'll just say that. I was like, yeah, I'll never hear from her again. And then like 5 or 6 weeks later, you just texted me out of the blue and you're like, hey, the stuff with my family is resolved. If you want to go out on another date.
She was just being honest, and you didn't know, but that was very Erica of her. Of just telling it like it is.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was our weird kind of start to our relationship. But yeah, we've been together for like 6.5 years now, and live in Logan Square, and super happy with our puppy and our cat.
Yeah.
What made your second date so bad?
Goodness. Okay, well, first off, at the time, I was a distribution center operations manager, and I had like closed the warehouse that day. So I had like worked a little bit of a longer day. I'd worked kind of late, went straight to dinner after this. And I was sleepy, man. I could not pay attention to the conversation. I wasn't like forehead on the table asleep, but I was like pretty close to that.
Yeah, and like I had literally just finished, I think, finals or like writing my thesis, whatever it was, and so like brain was fried, and the two of the whole like we got dinner at the Pokey place
And Hikori.
yeah, on Milwaukee, I
Mhm.
think, yeah. Yeah, the whole date was just kind of like trying to create a conversation that just was not happening.
Been there.
Um, yeah, and then the worst, the thing that I think made it even more awkward at the end of the date was we were going our separate ways, getting on different, or going to different Blue Line stops, I think, and it was December, so I was wearing a coat. Went to give a hug, and one of my hands got stuck in my pocket. So like, I didn't know it. I kind of, I'm awkward, so I kind of panicked and just gave like a one-armed like side hug because the other arm was stuck in the pocket.
And I was like, oh yeah, this was that bad of a date. Side arm hug? Cool, dude.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yes.
So, Erica, what made you want to
Reach back
go
out?
back
Yeah. Why
with
did like
Ryan?
you waited 6 weeks and everything calmed down? But then what made you think, hey, I should check that out again?
Well, like Ryan said, the first date was like awesome. It was such a good first date. And he recommended a like 1100 page book to me, and I like read it and loved it, and like got introduced to a new author. And like,
That is
the
also very much the
conversation-
two of you, I just have to say.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where like we started talking about books, and like I think you asked like what one of my favorite books was, and it's Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett, which is like a historical fiction set in like the year 1100 in England, and it's like I don't know, it's very like a very real depiction of life in that time. Like people are like suffering and like all that, and
Sounds
it's
great.
like, yeah, it's a real romantic like somebody on a date. So then when you like, I think you texted me like 5 days later, and we're like, hey, I finished the book. It's like a 1,200 page book.
Oh my god, that's impressive.
Yeah, that's what I said. So yeah, that was part of where I was like, okay, like this could be a real thing if she's actually going to read this 1,200 page book. And
Yeah, so beyond the first date being awesome and wanting to give it another chance, like I've 100% felt like the second date I did not show up the way I wanted to show up, and so I felt like even if the first date had been bad, I think I would have gone on a third because I've been like, I have to redeem myself. I have to put my best foot forward again.
There cannot
but
be
no,
any human in the world who has this as their parting image of me.
Yeah, exactly. I cannot let him think that that's what I'm like. So yeah, we made it right on the third date.
yes.
And I don't want to take credit for your entire relationship, but
I don't know where this is going.
I think
Yeah,
I know
Ryan,
where it's going.
I think Ryan and I were in a yoga class the day of your third date. Was that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds
And
right.
and good vibes. We were like flowing. It was a hot class, and I said, Ryan, you should really give her a shot. You should go for it. Did I say that? I don't remember. But again, I just want to be part of your love story.
No,
So just to be
100% you did. I remember so distinctly because my friend Tabby did the same thing, where she was like, I don't know, Eric, I think you should give him a chance, like go for it. And I remember being like, both of us had that person in our corner
Aw.
that was like, no, I think you should give this a shot. And
Yeah.
y'all were right.
I'm so glad that you confirmed that for her, because for a second there, I thought she was literally saying, because I saw Ryan earlier in the day, I'm a part of your love story. Like that's all that really was. You were confident had happened.
No.
You had seen him.
And you weren't there, right? It was just me and you, Ryan, in the yoga class. We said, nah, screw Nick.
My guess is I did not want to go.
You
to
said,
yoga.
no, thank you.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, but it is what it is. Well, and then the rest is history. And then you guys had a lovely. Speaking of being giant, lovely book nerds, lovely wedding ceremony that had very few, if any, religious references, but lots of excellent references from really great literature.
I don't want to talk for you guys, but I'm going to real quick. I cannot stop telling people about your wedding because of it was a wedding unlike any wedding I've ever been to because of the format of the ceremony, the vows that were like written by Shakespeare himself, and the smoke gun. But I want to ask
yes.
you guys, how did you come up with the? I don't know if you came up with it, but how'd you decide on wedding in the round and the concept? And will you explain that to our listeners?
You want to do that? You want me to?
I can do it. So the idea of wedding in the round really came from the vibe that we wanted to create at the ceremony, which was really about, making a declaration of our love and a commitment to each other, but really like in the community of our closest friends and family, knowing that y'all are the ones that are going to help us, help support us through this marriage and through our lives. And it's like the whole "it takes a village" thing, like that is really something we wanted to come across in our ceremony, and doing it in the round, just being surrounded by our people felt like such a good like physical manifestation of what we were trying to do.
So will you explain for the unknowers what is a wedding in the
Oh, yeah.
round? Because I didn't know at all.
So we had like, imagine a circle, and Ryan and I are standing in the middle of it. And then on 3 sides of the circle, there are chairs for people to sit in. It was part of the normal ceremony. And then on the 4th side, we had our bridal party standing. So with the 4 sides all around us, it created a little circle for us.
Yeah. So instead of everybody staring at the backs of our heads the entire ceremony, they were around us.
They were staring at different parts of our
Yeah. And to be fair, I don't think "wedding in the round" is an actual term. I think we made that up.
Is it?
I don't think so. It's a theater term for like a play
Play in the round, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Cool. I'll take that invention.
Trademark.
I was just going to say trademark Ryan and Erica Reetz, if that has not been done so. No, I think it describes it perfectly in terms of using that theater term for it. And it was a lovely sentiment. And I think there's beauty in obviously some ceremonies talk about the ring, the physical nature of the ring sort of being unending, unbroken, etc. And so it's kind of the same thing, even with the physical people. You look like you had something to say, Dan.
I was going to say also not just like the physical round, but like you just had a bunch of people coming up and doing different parts of your ceremony. So there wasn't one officiant, there was a bunch of officiants, and I thought that was just so cool.
Yeah, thank you. I think 2 things are true about us that led there. Like, we cannot do anything half-assed.
What? No.
Did we try to do it half-assed? I don't think so.
I think sometimes we go like, do we have to put this much effort into it? And like, there's a little thing in the back of our heads like, probably not. But then we just immediately like tune that out.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't know, we're not like non-traditional, like just to be non-traditional, but I think we're very much like doing things traditionally just for like, because this is how they've always been done, like it doesn't make sense to us. And so yeah, like the idea of like just having one person be in that role to us felt like it didn't allow people, like the people that are important to us, to have a big enough part in the ceremony, which was important to us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was for one honored to be someone who spoke at one of the readings, and just to share a small glimpse, and I will allow you guys to probably remind me what the exact quote comes from, but there was, to paraphrase, an element where it spoke of when we both pass away and our atoms are split apart and, dust to dust, that the atoms will have to be kept, one from me and one from you, when they go back into other things, because we're that intertwined, we cannot be separated. And I'm getting weepy just thinking about that sentiment. It is beautiful. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was also going to say, you guys mentioned not being traditional, and so we don't have to get into it too much, but Ryan, when I first met you, you had a different name than Reetz, and Reetz is actually the name that Erica came into this relationship with, and you have now adopted it.
And into this life with.
I don't know her whole story. I guess I don't technically know whether that's true. What I know is Reetz is Erica's last name, her maiden name, quote, end quote. And Ryan is now the one in this relationship who will forever go forward with a, quote, end quote, maiden. I don't know what the sort of genteel version of that is, but I think that's very cool and non-traditional. Would you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like it's a super exciting story. But I don't. It's been fun because I have a weird last name that like doesn't really have any logical history behind it. Like, uh, it's a German sounding last name, but anyone we've ever interacted with from Germany or who speaks German is like, that's not a name that exists here or like that I've ever heard before. Like we really don't know like where it came from or what it's supposed to mean. And it's also just like something like I've always disliked it because no one can ever pronounce it right.
Mm.
Um, like it's so long, so like anytime you have to like fill in like I guess like I'm dating myself here if you have young listeners where like you used to have to like write stuff with a pen and paper. And for like standardized tests, you'd have to do it in these like little boxes where like each letter of your name had to be in a different box.
Did you run out of boxes?
Well, I'd get like pretty close, and it was just like so tedious.
Yeah.
And then like having to like spell it like phonetically like over the phone so people hear like the right letters and all that. Just I don't know, it bugged me up. So I've never really liked my last name. And I like Erica's. You like yours. People have referred to you by your last name like most of your life as an athlete. So I don't know. It's just kind of like why, if a woman is like would change her name for her spouse, like why shouldn't the men be willing to do the same? So it's I don't know. We've gotten so much more of a reaction to it than I expected. Like to me, it's like not a big deal, but
yeah, we feel that on.
Yeah, I mean, our social media presence uses the word Smaldwin, for example, which is a blend of our two names. And just even using it in that context alone, there's been a lot of, like, commentary and blowback. And I'm just like, well, like, guys, we all just made up what the naming conventions are. Like, everyone you know who's got the name Johnson is because at one point one of their ancestors was the son of John. Like, guys, we're just going by the seat of our pants here. Like, this is not that big of a deal. But some people have a very strong tie to their historical name. I just personally don't think that matters unless it means you have, a right to different titles and lands or something like that, the way it did in old England times. So, yeah.
And I think if I had like a cool last name, maybe it would have been a different conversation. But
well, now you do.
Right.
Yeah, now you do.
Exactly.
I feel like Ryan Reetz sounds
so much better. It just has a
an
good
actor.
ring to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, an actor. You gonna be an actor now that you got a cool actor name, Ryan?
Probably not. I don't think I could memorize lines effectively.
So practical.
That's the part he thinks about, the memorization.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of things that, are not necessarily traditional, and I've talked to you all about this before, and I seem to get different responses every time, which is why I think it's very interesting. But we happen to be people who feel no one should ever feel pressured to have kids. There is no right way to live one's life happily. There's definitely not a right way to live one's life happily in a relationship. You don't even have to get married, as far as I'm concerned, for that to be the case. But certainly some other people, maybe from previous generations, have different opinions about that. I have no doubt that somewhere in your lives you've had someone either assuming that you were going to have kids or asking the blunt question, so when are you going to have kids? So at the risk of sounding like one of those people, where are you at right now and your feelings about having kids? Because we want to recognize on our podcast, not everyone chooses that the way that we have.
Yeah, I think you set us up for this one really well in terms of, like, we've talked about this before, and our answer changes over time, and like full disclosure, that was something that was really important to like us becoming engaged, is having the conversation about us not being decided on this and talking about like what the path forward would be if eventually, one person ended up feeling strongly and the other person still didn't feel strongly, or we both started feeling strongly on the like opposite sides of this one, because being a parent is a big, like, there's no middle zone here. Like, you are a parent or you're not a parent.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. There's not a whole lot of like, compromises and like we'll do it on the weekend. Like, no, like you're either a parent 100% or you're not, or at least that's how I would want to parent if I became a parent. And so, like, yeah, I think especially, speaking for where I am right now, like, I honestly haven't thought about it that much because I feel like there's just been, like, so much gearing up towards the wedding and then And then post-wedding, was lucky enough to get a promotion at work recently. And so I've been thinking a lot about that. Thank you. But it's definitely true. There's especially in my new role, a lot of my peers have kids that are younger, less than 10, but also older, like applying for colleges. And there's a lot of conversation about what it's like to be a parent and how you learn so much from that. And I'm a little bit on the outside of those conversations. I don't think it's on purpose. Like they're not trying to not include me, but it's just a different life experience. So something that has been, come up more at work, honestly, recently than it has previously in my career, which is, I don't know, it's been a new thing to navigate.
Yeah, and I think the open communication, I think, is what's been the most important thing for us, and like has allowed us to be kind of fluid in what we think about having kids long term. There's always just been like this like just like transparent idea that like we will keep that sort of like communication line open and like be comfortable like talking about when our feelings about it change. Because they do, like, I don't know, it was weird.
Yeah.
Like most of the time I lean more towards no. But periodically, like we were on our honeymoon and there was like a 2-day period where I was like, I don't know, I think I could have kids. Like that sounds like fun, but but like that was like a 2-day whim and then that kind of went away. But yeah, it's interesting. Like I don't know that we're like firmly in one camp or the other of like yes we will or no we won't. I think it's more like I don't know. I don't feel like I have the capacity to be a parent right now. Like most of the times when I think about having a kid right now, it's through the lens of I don't know how the fuck people have kids. Like I'm so
Dude, me
burnt
neither.
out.
I mean, honestly, having
We're
one doesn't change
well.
that.
I know. I'm like I get home from work and I'm like I am so tired and like it's a challenge to take care of myself. Like some days, like how do you like I was like how do people just set that aside and like take care of another human? Like I don't know how to do that, but yeah, I don't know. So like I think this kind of comes back to like our like predispositions towards like logic. Like we're like we kind of fall into this like well what it wouldn't be logical to have a kid right now because of this, or maybe it would, at a certain point in the future. But
Have you all, and this is getting personal, have you all taken any steps? Or you mentioned that you have, plans for if one changes and how to handle that. Is it beyond keeping an open line of communication? What level of detail are you willing to share? Have you maybe taken there are obviously medical steps that one can take to sort of say like, hey, I'm not ready right now, but 10 years from now, maybe I might change my mind. I'm just curious, have you done any of those types of things, or what plan do you have, to handle it if someone's opinion changes?
just to be clear, are you asking about our contraception use? Or,
I know, I was like, where are you going with this? So how often are you doing it? Are you tracking your cycle? Condoms or no condoms?
No, I apologize. I can understand. I don't know why I was being cagey about it. I'm talking about things like, have you frozen your eggs? Have you frozen your sperm? There are steps you can take that sort of
I knew where you were going.
Thank
I was
you.
ready to respond.
Maybe that's because it matters much more for women, especially. I mean, physically speaking, men are more able, apparently, to keep doing that part of things much later on, easily, I should say.
And then answer my question after.
So the simple answer is like, no, we haven't taken any like medical steps to understand what it would look like for us potentially if we wanted to try to become parents. I think a lot of that for me is I know how my brain works, and my head is clearest when I am like not being influenced by other information. And I'm also a checklist girl. And so if I start a checklist, like I'm gonna want to finish it. And so like let's not start going down the list until we're sure we want to check the last box. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Sure.
So like that's been a thing for me. And I'm not really a person who's like, if I couldn't have kids, then it's not meant to be. It's like, no, if we decided we wanted to be parents and then found out that we were unable to conceive, there's so many other ways to become parents, and those would be options for us to consider and for us to think about going down. So, yeah, I also like there's so little research done on pregnant women in particular. There's so little representation of women in general in medical studies. And so even though a pregnancy over 35 is like high risk pregnancy, I really think that's just because we haven't educated ourselves on like how to support those types of pregnancies.
Yeah.
So like I'm getting closer to 35, and while that's a pretty big red line in like a physician's default way of dealing with a pregnancy, it just hasn't been a big deal to me because I believe that if we got there and decided to have kids, like we would figure out like what was going to be the right path forward for us, and we would go from there at that time.
That's awesome.
I don't know how you think about it.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about. Well, I've never even
Thought about women's health?
or sperm, like. I've thought like
I love you so much.
at points in my life, like in grad school when I needed money, I've thought about like, could I sell this? But could I freeze it for personal use? So yeah, that's why I was confused when you were like.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, Ryan is basically saying, I have not given this much thought because there's not much reason for me to feel like I need to give it much thought until I decide. But I also agree entirely, Erica, with what you're saying of like lots of options. We have discussed. And I think we've shared it with this on this podcast before. Danielle did not love pregnancy, for example. So we've talked about if we were to decide to have a second kid, maybe we would just consider adoption, and maybe we even wait a few years so that that's a whole other avenue that, like you're saying, let's say you wait 10 more years and you're kind of wanting to have, you decide you want to have a kid, but you don't want to go through pregnancy, or you can't go through pregnancy for some reason. You could also just sort of immediately be at the same level of your peers in terms of your children's age. You know what I mean? Just adopt a kid that's,
I love that idea.
10 years old instead of one that's,
I didn't even
10 months old.
It's just like skipping the like the benefits are just like,
goodness.
like we can just skip the hardest part. Like,
I think some parents might debate with you, Ryan, whether the hardest part is in fact the immediately after birth, but I'm not there yet, so I'm not going to say that I know for sure. So
In my 7 months of parenting, I'd say skip the first 3 months. Would not recommend. I want to say, whatever you all choose to do is correct, but I want to say that your relationship is just very impressive because you are able to like be so like matter of fact, logical, intelligent, and you're both that way. Like, it is very clear that you're meant for each other because
Thanks, Danny.
of just the way that you both operate. Like, some of the smartest people I know, you're smart too. They're some of the smartest people I know. And just, I don't know, you complement each other so much. I think, like, if Nick told me to read an 1,100-page book on our first date,
we would not have had a second date.
So it's just very, I think y'all found the right person. It's very sweet to see your relationship, and we've seen you from the beginning to here.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
And we do need to move on to the second half of our podcast, so I won't get into this. We can save it for you all again if you wanted to come on as guests another time. But you do have also more of a story that I think has gotten you to that point. And I have shared that with both of you, that I humbly believe, echoing what Danielle said, you guys are an excellent example of what I think a successful couple is likely to be. And I take that everyone should listen to me with a grain of salt. I am one person with an anecdotal experience. I am certainly not an expert on what makes a successful relationship. However, I've come to believe that I think that you have to have that love and that spark and that connection in the first place. And then you have to have the drive and the interest to work on it. And I see that very much in the two of you. And that is something that I don't always see in people who are this early in their marriage, for example.
Thank you. Yeah, and I was gonna say, I do think we inherently do fit together well, but we also have done a lot of work, especially around communication and how to communicate effectively, or recognize the ways that we say things or hear things that the other says, and how that can influence the way we react and respond. So, yeah, I know we need to move on, so we won't spend a lot of time there, but I don't know where. Oh, here it is.
He has a book to recommend, I think.
This feels like it's staged.
Is it 1,100?
Yeah. No. So Hold Me Tight is a book that a couples counselor that we saw recommended that's really been helpful. It's
you can see there's still post-it notes in this one.
it's really all about communication, and especially like how when you get stuck in like frustration or argument, like how to drill into what's driving that to be able to kind of get to the root cause of the issue. Because a lot of times what we found for us is like the thing that was the root cause of what was like causing the argument or the frustration or not being able to make progress was not the thing itself. It was like an underlying like more baseline emotion that it was triggering for us. So I just want to be fair to the listening audience that we didn't just like, pop out this way and are perfect together.
Yeah, this is the result of a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's fairness to you all too, to give you credit where credit is due. And I actually just wrote that down because, full disclosure, the last couple of weeks, Danielle and I've had a couple of moments where we've been a little bit tense, and the way you described it, sort of log jam and not being able to communicate with each other. So I'm always open to additional resources to potentially help with that, because I echo the sentiment that you all have articulated, and think that we also have discovered many of those things, but then the work is also not just done because you have discovered the ways to talk to each other.
Yeah. And we normally ask couples, like, what is your advice for an effective relationship? You kind of just shared some of it, but, like, if you had to whittle it down to, like, one statement based on communication, like, what advice would you give? Or what has worked for you?
Distill an entire works that has generated so much growth and understanding in your relationship to a
Put it
single
in
sentence.
simple words, please.
I think I would, it's kind of like don't think that there's a default setting. Like, there is no sit back, relax, and just live. And maybe that works for some people, but, like, congratulations, you are super rare, and I hope the best for you. But, like, just know that it's work. Just know that, like everything, it's a skill, it's a muscle. It takes time to grow and develop. So, yeah, that would be my one-liner.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, I don't subscribe to this idea that like a good relationship is one that's perpetually like easy and
Yeah.
like you don't have to like think about it. Like, I don't think that's realistic for most humans. So like appreciate that like work is part of it, and if you care about the person, and like then the work isn't that hard then, if like if you want to make the relationship work. The other thing that I think, I don't know if this is the one thing, but we don't subscribe to the don't go to bed angry notion, because it can push you into continuing the argument. We try to subscribe to like recognize when we need space, or one of us needs space from the other to like decompress or chill out, or just kind of like take a step back and like recognize when the right opportunity is to come back and try to revisit something. So you're not just kind of continuing to spin your wheels in that same argument because you're not in a place to have a productive conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
And without getting too much further, it's like, of course, you bring something up. Like, I'm the pedant. I have to say one more thing. When we originally, like 2 years ago, debated or discussed having Ryan and Erica on, it was under the guise that we might have that debate, because I was very much the never go to bed angry.
Which led to tired
I was
nights.
just going to say, I was going to admit, like, a lot of my personal process has often been, I do better when I'm talking things out, and I am not well when I am ruminating in my own head and sort of catastrophizing. And, sometimes when you say, like, don't go to bed angry, but you just end the argument and try to go to bed, I'm not going to sleep. Now, there's been a lot of work for me personally as an individual to get to a point where I can now say this. But I do think there's truth to all of what you just said. And within sort of mental health spaces, there's this acronym HALT: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. If you're feeling any of those things, you're probably not going to be productive at any of the thing that you are trying to do. So if you are very tired and you're trying to have a productive conversation, even if you're someone like me and you're worried it's going to keep you up, you're worried about all those issues, really evaluate when you cross that line of the cost benefit of staying up, because everyone has a point where it's now you're too tired, and no matter what you're saying, you're not actually helping whatever conversation you're trying to have. So
Yeah.
I also think for me, it sounds like one of you is like this as well. Like, I need to separate myself from the conversation to be able to think about the things rather than just sit in it too. So very early on in our relationship, Nick really, really wanted to talk. I don't know if you know this about Nick. He likes to talk. A
Never
lot.
picked up on that.
I don't know if you know this, Danny. That's why they get along so well. Oh, forever. And so I 100% know what you mean, where I'm just like, dude, you are like debating me right now, and we are playing for the same team.
Yeah.
And that's how I start feeling. So I'm the same way, Danny.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so if we do want to turn this into some version of a kernel of advice, because I think a lot of times we say platitudes like "don't go to bed early" or "don't go to bed angry."
No, you should go to bed early.
Don't go to bed angry, or we say do go to, let yourselves go to bed angry, or hit pause on it, but you don't go deeper. I think the thing you need to establish if you're struggling with this in your relationship, especially because you might be like us and you all, that maybe one person leans one way or the other, figure out the way to have trust so that the person who maybe is ruminating knows that the conversation will still continue later. Like, know that there's this level of trust and commitment and understanding that there's no reason to feel, because I think that's ultimately at its core what the fear is like this fear that I'm not enough, that I'm going to be left alone, that if we don't figure this out, that it's going to somehow fester and destroy the relationship because we're not going to talk about it. Erica's pointing to their book.
Like, you've read it already. You're doing great.
So get to that place where you have enough of your relationship, whatever stage you're at in your relationship, where, and sometimes that's literally for you and I, Danielle, Ben, you just sort of taking that beat to reassure me. And you just said, like, sometimes we need space. Maybe it's in the middle of the day. Maybe it's in the morning. And maybe it's just like, hey, I need you to back off. I love you. We're going to come back to this, but give me the time. And then that is where I then get to a place where I'm like, okay, I don't need to ruminate. I don't need to be panicking. I don't need to be telling myself all of the worst possible scenarios that could occur. We'll figure it out later. So that's the advice that I give, is get to that place. Get that basis of trust and commitment. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And so we can go to bed early. Yeah. We'll take our break here, and when we come back, Reetz, what movie are we talking about again?
Game night.
Game night. In love with movies.
Hey there, movie lovers. I'm chiming in here between our segments to actually give a plug for something for once. And this time it's not some ad for somebody else, but instead it is us looking for you to help support friends, past guests, and future guests of the pod, Comic Book Couples Counseling. If you're a fan of their work, I think you'll enjoy this comic that they have created as a part of the Pots and Panels, a comic book anthology and cookbook. So, if you like the creators' Comic Book Couples Counseling, if you like our content, if you're looking for something for a Christmas gift, if you're looking for something to get somebody who loves comics but hasn't gotten all of them, or you need something new, or if you're somebody who just really likes cooking and maybe is thinking about getting into comic books, you should back this panel. You can get lots of great rewards for it, and there are 17 days left to go as the time of this recording. They're at about a third of the way to their goal, so make sure to go and find that as soon as possible. Again, it's Pots and Panels, a comic book couples Pots and Panels, a comic book anthology and cookbook. We will have a link to the Kickstarter in our information here on this episode. Be sure to tune in for next episode this month. We will have a Halloween episode special with Comic Book Couples Counseling talking about their entry. So in the meantime, make sure you go back the Kickstarter. Again, it's Pots and Panels, a comic book anthology and cookbook. And then stay tuned for a little bit more information about their particular comic from Brad and Lisa Gullickson on a future episode. Bye-bye.
In love with movies. Da-da-da.
Welcome back, movie lovers, to In Love with Movies.
You should say, and we're back.
Oh, God, I have forgotten this. Here, let's just do that again.
In love with movies. Da-da-da.
And we're back. I'm having to be reminded how to podcast. That's how good my brain's working these days. Welcome back, movie lovers, to the second half of the pod.
The same thing that you were saying. Okay, keep going.
Okay, now you're going to make me do it again. I was going to try and just roll right through the mistakes.
This is like Lord of the Rings. Where they keep doing the ending over and over again, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. They
Anyways.
have like 8 different ones.
That's true.
I love that part of that.
8
movie.
different beginnings
too.
instead of 8 different endings.
Go.
Yeah.
In love with movies.
And we're back.
All right, do some opening credits, Nick.
All right, on the second half of the podcast, we are talking about the movie Game Night. Game Night came out in 2018, so actually not that long ago. It was the same year that we got married. And it was based on a short film, which I discovered when I was looking some things up on IMDb. It was based on a short film from 2014. Okay, hold on.
Okay.
The short film was only, it was very short, it was less than 75 minutes. Anyway, it was a 51-hour film festival competition, okay? The rules of the competition were that you had to include in your short film either a war or a cocktail party. You had to include 3 of the following 5 things: a camera and photos, a stick of gum, ice, a passport, and or sheet music. Now, I bring this up because I want us and listeners to, if you haven't seen Game Night, kind of be thinking about, or when you go back to watch it, tracking whether we think those things appear in the longer, full-length version of the movie that we eventually watched.
Say 'em again.
It is 3 of the 5. A camera and or photos, so those are kind of like one thing. A stick of gum, ice, a passport, and sheet music.
Okay.
I think we've got at least 2 of the 5.
I was thinking the same thing, Erica, and I'm like, I did not actually track it as much as I meant to when I first discovered this, because I did discover it as we were starting to watch the movie, and then I just got sucked into the movie, and I forgot to pay attention because it's a good movie.
Right.
All right, but so the movie was directed by John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein. So fun things I think that are interesting about that. John Francis Daly, I know from the movie Waiting. He actually plays the character who doesn't speak until the very end of the movie Waiting. He's the guy in training and keeps getting interrupted.
Oh, yeah.
And then at the very end of the party, he's like, "Shut the fuck up! You haven't let me talk all day!" Blah, blah, blah. That's John Francis Daly. He now directs more than anything. Jonathan
He was
Goldstein.
also in Bones.
Is he in Bones?
I
I didn't know that.
right now, but he was also in Bones.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Bones is a good
obsessed with Bones.
good TV show. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Jonathan Goldstein, all of us on the call I know we're fans of. He was the writer and director of the recent D&D movie. So Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. He both wrote and directed that.
I really like that movie.
So that
For him,
tracks.
that's a very good movie.
Yeah. Also, a writer credit for this with Jonathan Goldstein was Mark Perez. I know him from the movie Accepted, and Danielle, you probably know him from the Lindsay Lohan vehicle Herbie Fully Loaded.
Correct.
I know one of those 2 movies.
The movie stars Jason Bateman. We recently were on an episode of Superhero Cinephiles where we talked about him being in the movie Hancock. So if you want to go watch that.
Yeah.
Another good one.
Very famous for Arrested Development. I also think his most underrated role was in the movie Dodgeball.
Also, Horrible Bosses, right?
Horrible Bosses he was in. Yes, that's part of our movie history. Very much so, yeah.
And he's
Ozark.
Smartless is like the top podcast of all time.
True,
Really?
true.
I don't
Yeah,
think it's of
Smartless
all
is
time, but-
very, very big, actually. And it's him and Will Arnett and...
Sean. What? Tell me his last name, guys.
Oh, God.
Sean Hayes. There we go.
Sean Hayes. Yep. Yeah, so if you're a podcast fan, maybe you know that. Rachel McAdams is also in this movie. People may know her from Mean Girls or The Notebook. Mm-hmm. We've got Kyle Chandler, who I feel like is mostly probably known for Friday Night Lights, but he was very recently announced to be the Green Lantern in the upcoming DC live action. So we'll see if he plays that.
Which one is Kyle
Kyle Chandler.
Yeah.
Kyle Chandler.
Which-
The older brother.
Oh,
The guy who sets all this off
they're
because
putting
he's...
that
Oh,
old
Clear
guy.
Eyes Full Heart. Come on, Danny.
He's for what?
Clear Eyes Full Heart from Friday Night Lights.
I haven't watched Friday Night Lights.
I've never seen any of Friday Night.
Oh,
I
that
guess
was
we
a-
got-
that was a
we
college
have to start.
obsession for me and my crew.
Okay, we have to stop and I have to point something out. Nick always yells at me because he thinks I put my water bottle down too loud. I don't know if y'all just saw that, but he spilled water everywhere.
Yep, that happened. All right, we're going to keep rolling.
No, should we start over? Press the button.
Billy Magnuson.
Billy Madison.
Billy Magnuson.
Okay.
He plays the really dumb friend. But you
Oh,
also were
yes.
asking me, what do I know him from? And I know him from recently. There was a great TV show called Made for Love. Brilliant mind F of a show. I really love the first season. Haven't watched the second. It only got 2, unfortunately. He also was in Roadhouse. He plays kind of the manic rich guy. So,
The son of the,
yes.
well, the manic son. Yeah.
Yeah. Lamorne Morris is in this. I mean, you can't forget that.
Winnie the
Obviously
Bish.
from New Girl. He also, if you guys didn't know, he has won an Emmy now for Fargo, that most recent
Oh,
season.
sweet.
Michael C. Hall. He's the guy who plays Dexter. If you've seen the show Dexter, and he also in this plays the like random mob boss type character, which is it made me think of his role in the movie Gamer. Maybe because it has the word game, but also because it's a very similar role where he's just this kind of like enigmatic, quiet, scary, violent person. But anyway, yeah, that's an underrated Gerard Butler movie. Jesse Plemons. So we're getting a little deep here, but there's like people here I think that can't be forgotten, especially for how they are now. Jesse Plemons is famous from Breaking Bad, but also is now in movies like Kinds of Sadness and other movies where he's like a serious dramatic
Who does
actor.
he play?
He plays the police officer next door neighbor.
Okay.
All right, and then last but not least, Danny Houston, who is the villain in X-Men, Wolverine, and Wonder Woman, which are both movies that we've talked about here, so I had to make sure to cover that as well.
I think you forgot the rest of the women in the movie.
It's a fair point. Please correct me.
Well, I didn't look them up. That's your job. There's the Irish woman.
So,
Sarah Horgan.
yes,
Thank you.
Yep.
What would
Erica
we know
may
her-
or may not be looking at the IMDb right now.
I
did...
am 100%.
I did look them up. I will say, in my own defense, I usually pick names that I think I will have something to reference to that I know them from outside of the thing we are talking about.
Yeah, but don't
I
forget to
had
mention women.
no other understanding of those women. I did not know them from anything
What
else.
about Lamorne's wife? Is
Also
she
not in anything else that I knew.
Okay, well, I'd like to acknowledge there's more than one woman in this movie.
You are absolutely right to do so.
Okay.
Chelsea Peretti makes a cameo.
You're right. I did almost
does,
write
yeah.
her down. Yes, because she's from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And
Yep.
she does a great cameo in this as well.
Agreed.
Yes.
Thank you. I genuinely, I appreciate you putting me in my place as usual.
You're welcome.
All right, are you done scolding me now?
For now, yeah.
All right, well, we need to get to our love stories because I can't wait to hear Ryan and Erica's love story. But before we get there, we have to listen to my favorite segment where Danny will give us a quick summary for those who have not seen the movie. Spoilers, Danny is going to summarize the movie in a minute or less.
A minute?
Time for Danny's Dingle.
Competition. Trivia. Enemies? No, lovers. Marriage. Creepy neighbor guy. Tostino's scoops. This is gonna be a game night to remember, aka ultimate game of kidnap. There's a gun. a lot of gunplay. So this is a game. It's not. Is it a game? It's a game. Wait, it's not a game. Oh my God! I shot you. The bullet scene. Yikes. Gary, Hart, Debbie. The dog. Denzel, but not Denzel. An egg. They broke the egg. Rich Guys Fight Club. Gary. Violent ending.
No more notes.
That was the end of my notes. Okay, thank you. To be fair, we watched this a week and a half ago or something, and wow, a lot has happened in that time in our life.
That is true. Very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and summarize our love story with this movie.
Okay.
Danielle and I were looking for something to watch that was on streaming at some point in late 2018 or early 2019, whenever this was a movie that hit streaming, and we discovered it, we saw it, we rented it, we watched it, we enjoyed it, and I think felt very similarly about it, that it was fun and only had the one scene that we both grimaced at then and similarly grimaced at now when we watched it a couple of weeks ago. But that's our love story with this movie. Ryan, Erica.
Is it the scene where she's cutting the bullet out
Yes.
of his forearm?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm like squirming just thinking about it.
I can't.
I don't know what it is about that scene. Sorry, we'll get to our love story in a second, but it's like it's squirmy, but it's so ridiculous. But like they handle it so well. Or like I don't know.
The humor is done very well. I
Yeah.
don't know whether the visual was necessary.
Yes.
And it is the thing where I'm kind of like, that scene, I feel like a little boy, I'm like watching through my fingers to
Yeah.
not see the thing, but you're still hearing the comedy that's happening. Yeah, but other than that, the movie has no other squeamish parts for me.
Before you say your love story, I would like to say thank you for picking a movie that I actually like because, man, we've had some rough ones lately. So I'm happy to watch
We
it.
did that on purpose, Danny.
I appreciate
Or at least we tried. We made an attempt.
we had serious discussion around. Man, we could really talk about the background of any Lord of the Rings movie so much more than this, but we didn't want to do that.
We'll
to
save
you.
that for next time.
That's
Or
right.
Ready Player One, which is just
Oh,
like
yeah.
nerd reference on
Yeah.
nerd reference.
We
so.
figured that would just be a conversation with us and Nick, and you would be sitting.
You're not wrong. So, why did you pick this movie as your love movie?
Yeah, I mean, so other than the fact that it's not a Lord of the Rings movie or Ready Player One, no, it's like this movie didn't start out significant for us. I guess it was just so I think it was either summer of 2018 or summer of 2019. We were both moving, and if anybody has ever lived in the city of Chicago or probably any major city and tried to move in the summer, it's like everyone's lease ends and starts at the exact same time.
That's correct.
Your lease ends the last day of the month. It starts the first day of the month, and there's this weird 24-hour in-between period where no one has anywhere to live, and it's like scrambling to like get your stuff out of an apartment and into a moving truck and like figuring out where to store it. And we were in that point, and we were lucky enough that my parents live in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, so we were able to pack up both of our apartments and unload them into their garage for 24 hours until we could move them into the apartment. I don't think it was when we moved in together. I think it was the year before that.
Yeah,
So
it was the year before that. And I feel like it's important to stress that they live in the northwest suburbs, but it's like
It's like an hour.
It's an hour
it's
and a half.
drive.
I was gonna say, yeah,
There.
from just
And
about
then
anywhere
after-
central in the city, going to the
Yeah.
northwest burbs is
So it was
1 to
it was
2.
a trek.
Yeah.
It's 44 miles. It's an hour to an hour and a half, but it's also not an easy place to get to. And they were challenging moves. There was me and your dad shattering your dining room table as we tried to get it into an elevator.
Which should come up in our wedding, made an appearance.
It was an entire glass topped
Mm-hmm.
table, half of which I think is just shattered glass below that elevator in that building still.
We're definitely shoving it down there.
We couldn't get the elevator doors to close because there was so much broken glass in the tracks of the doors.
Oh man.
So between like that and like me moving with like a 6-month-old puppy, us moving 2 separate apartments like in multiple trips, it was just a lot. Moving's a lot. It's exhausting. And so we were staying at my parents' house that night, and we were just like fried. Just like we're not tired, like we want to go to sleep, but like we can't think about anything. We just want to like watch, like turn something on that's going to be entertaining, and we can just kind of zone out and like enjoy it. And so similarly, I think it was just like it just become a streaming movie,
Okay.
and we were both like, oh, like we like Jason Bateman, we like Rachel McAdams, like sure, let's give this a try. Like zero expectations other than like I don't know, it's got 2 actors that we like. And watching this movie the first time, like it is the hardest we have laughed like in our entire lives, maybe just like sobbing while we're watching this movie.
It was the first time I had to pause a movie because I literally could not breathe. I was laughing so hard that like I was gonna pass out if we didn't pause the movie so that I could like catch up with myself.
Do you
And, like,
remember
that
what
is-
scene that was specifically that was that bad?
It was
It was the gun scene
Okay.
at the when she's like she thinks it's a
Whipping
fake
around.
gun. And she's like waving it around.
Oh my God.
She's like putting it in people's faces. And then when it goes off, I think that's when I just like
Because she literally said,
and just
I
lost it.
shot you!
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to interrupt. Continue.
No, that's all right. So yeah, it was just like a movie. Like we can like the entire movie we just continued to find it hilarious. Part of it was probably just that we were so exhausted, but I like on rewatch we've rewatched it several times since then. We've not laughed so hard that we cry and like can't breathe since the first time, but like we still like really enjoy it, find it really funny. I think part of it is like it's a movie that like there's continuously like little bits that like you like subvert your expectations, or like you're just like, oh, like didn't like the like recurring joke with the tables, like the glass tables, you know.
Yeah, yes.
They just keep not breaking when people land on them. And you just don't expect that to become a recurring joke throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And
this, just to recap and make sure I'm understanding the timeline of things, this is literally the night of you having broken in an elevator, having accidentally set it down gently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Irony.
And then later that night, nobody can break one.
To be fair, I think if you had like thrown me on the table or something, or vice versa, like that table might have made it. It was set down at a diagonal sideways kind of angle, and so
glass tables were acting weird.
Glass tables were acting weird.
But yeah, so I don't know. We found it really entertaining, and it was like exactly the movie we needed. Like, you know, just like in the middle of a move, and to like just kind of like it like have a good laugh and unwind. Rewatching it a couple times since then, like rewatching it for this. One thing that I picked up on too is that I feel like we are very similar to the characters.
Yes.
I turned to Nick.
Do that.
At the beginning, I was like, oh, this is Ryan and Erica. Like, you're so competitive.
Literally the moment they like were attracted to each other, and then like you have the montage of them getting married and their whole relationship, and then him proposing through a game night situation, and them being as competitive as they are. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. We were like, oh, I get why they picked this.
Yeah.
Yeah. We identify strongly with those characters.
So much.
So yeah. So did I miss anything with our love story?
No, yeah, you hit it. I like the humor is just right for us, and I could so see us doing, like, I can picture myself in the bar with the fake gun being like, oh, I'm good.
I agree.
Like, it's just, it could be us, and I find that hilarious.
Yes.
That's funny. We watched it one time, and I forgot a lot of it.
Yeah,
but
thankfully.
I was gonna say I'm really glad that I did, because this movie is also a little bit scary, and like there's a mystery to it. It's like actually layered, and when you think of a movie made in 2018 that's just like a comedy with Rachel McAdams and Jason Bateman, you're like, it's probably gonna be forgettable. But this is a good movie. Like, it's very well done. It's very engaging, and then the humor is just like comes out of nowhere. So.
And it subverts your expectations, and as you all alluded to, it ends up doing so many twists that you like, and then like twists that are reverse twists that you're really like. There's points in this movie when you are absolutely convinced you know what's happening, and then you're convinced you did not, and that you are wrong, and then you're convinced that the first thing you thought was true, and then you're convinced that it's something else completely. And it's very well done. I don't know if either of you ever have heard of or seen the 1997 movie directed by David Fincher, starring Michael Douglas and Sean
Hayes.
It's not Sean Hayes.
Connery.
Anyway, it's called The Game. Sean Penn. I literally looked it up so I could remember the year. I saw this years ago at some point, probably well before I should have, because I'm sure I probably saw it in like 1999 when I was like 12, and it's a rated R David Fincher movie. If you know David Fincher, you know what that means. But it is also actually two very rich brothers, one who's kind of a fuck up, one who's like the like successful Michael Douglas character. And then the premise, from what I remember, is basically the rich brother who's a fuck up doesn't know what to get his brother who has everything. So what he gets him is this ultimate game. And so then the whole movie is the Michael Douglas character having to unravel this story, and there includes fake deaths and then real deaths, and then you never know like whether it's actually happening or not happening. You don't know what's the game and what's not the game, and it's all of that. And I watched this, and every time I watch it, I think, this is that movie, but you then take the David Fincher out of it and make it funny instead. Like, because it is just as successful, in my opinion, about confusing you and making you not sure what is actually happening, what the real reality is. But it does it all with a level of levity that is brilliant.
Yeah, I think one of the first jokes that I think is so stupid and so funny is when they're like, hey, we're not trying to have the creepy neighbor know we're having a game night. So they're like, so just be quiet when you come in, or like be inconspicuous. And they all come in through the windows. And it's filmed like a horror movie where there's like the hands come through. Hysterical.
Yeah.
So stupid.
And then Jesse Plemons does that role so well. Like, Jesse Plemons is, like, there's a reason he's become such a good, like, well-known actor, because he plays the comedic moments really well, but he plays the dead-eyed stare better than any actor alive today.
That guy's creepy.
Yeah.
Like, you legitimately think he's probably the one who's most likely to kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right, those are some of our initial thoughts. Other thoughts from anyone?
So what I thought was kind of interesting watching the movie, knowing that we were going to be on this podcast, was like how much of it that I didn't appreciate before is like relevant to like our lives now, like when they're talking about like having kids and or not having kids, and like what is the impact on their life, and like what do they want their lives to be, and it's just like, this is like really salient, and it's interesting because there are parts of like what they're talking about that like I really identify with it. It's like, yeah, I'm scared of this idea of like having to grow up and like not being able to like do the things that we find fun, you know, whenever we want, and having these other responsibilities, and that being like part of this concern around having kids is like, you're, you know, like are you sacrificing your freedom?
Yeah.
And like, what does that mean? And,
Yeah.
and like, do you find joy elsewhere because of that? Because I think that one of the things that's hard is like, because we do have a lot of fun together, and so it's like the fear of potentially impacting that or changing that is like, I don't know.
It's scary.
It's real.
Yeah, there's literally a line where they're like, I think it's where they're starting what they think is the game, but he's actually been kidnapped. Or is he? I can't remember.
Talking about Pac-Man?
No, where they're just like walking around and they're like, I wonder if we'll be able to do this when we have kids. And they just like look at each other, and that hit.
And yeah, Danielle and I looked at each other and both just said no. That's the answer. No.
But yeah, I mean, and that's the other part of this like layered movie is it's creepy, it's like intriguing, but also it's like real, and it's like these real problems, and it's very believable as this couple of like, well, everyone else is doing it, should we do it, or is it time, you know? So
well, and I think that they actually, and so I love, Ryan, that you shared that, because that to me is so perfectly emblematic of what I think I want this podcast to be about. And that is like, there are movies that make us and movies that we identify with and movies that we see ourselves in, that also, when you see them at different stages of your life, you see them from a completely different light, and different moments hit you differently. And movies and all their, like, I think personally for me, it's like, that's the only form of art that has that possibility. Like, there's books and things that, yes, admittedly get to that, but there's other layers then within the moving pictures element of movies. But the piece, and I don't know if this was, you know, anything that resonated for you, Ryan, but I wrote it down, the whole Pac-Man conversation, and he starts talking about, you know, do you remember when we were playing Pac-Man and we, you know, stayed up all night and we, you know, ran the table and nobody could take the system away from us, but then no matter what we did, we didn't get the leaderboard because we didn't go for the fruit. And I thought it was such a brilliant metaphor, and I actually wrote it down, and then they, of course, finally got there later in the movie, and I'd forgotten that. But, like, the idea of the fruit being kids, the idea of the fruit being the thing that gets you the quote-unquote high score. The difference is, I think, and obviously the movie's kind of trying to tell you, because of where the characters go, that there's one way to do that. I would argue that it also is like both of those ways of playing the game of life are perfectly valid, even if you accept the premise that kids are the sort of higher scoring, quote, end quote, hopefully through the frame of your enjoyment in life and not through the frame of some sort of social standing, because that's a stupid reason to have kids. But also, playing the game all night is a perfectly valid thing to want to do. Being able to be up all night because you want to have fun is still a way to play video games successfully, and there's no wrong or right way to play that video game. Just saying. Just because you don't end up on the leaderboard doesn't mean you didn't have a good time. Anyway,
yeah.
that was my thoughts on that.
No, yeah, I love that the metaphor too of like never going for the fruit. I actually thought about it a little bit differently though, whereas like the fruit wasn't necessarily having kids, but it was doing the new thing that you're a little scared of, but
Ah,
you think you want to do.
ah,
And the going for the dots is like the fear response, keep doing what you've been doing. And you can keep doing that for a really long time, but you'll never get to your own leaderboard of like those aspirations that you
yes,
had for yourself. So less about like, whatever society is telling you to do,
yes.
like whatever,
Yeah.
get rid of that. But like that thing that you've always thought that you've wanted to do, like look that square in the face and go for it. And maybe you go for it and the ghost eats you. And then guess what? You throw another quarter in and you go again and
Yes.
you try again. But it's not it like I thought about it more as uh like risk taking from a healthy perspective of like push yourself, try something new.
I love that.
See, this is why we have these conversations.
Exactly. And there's like, yep, two different people can interpret the things differently. And I just love that. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
so beautiful. But like, that's again, the art and the beauty of it and the lesson taken away. So
I want to talk about the comedy of some of these scenes that are so very. The thing I think that's really good about this movie too is it's unique. Like you see a lot of comedy movies, it's in the same trope as the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
So the scene where they're like in the bar and she's like holding up the bad guys because she thinks it's all a game. First of all, did you notice that when they're collecting their guns, they just put them in a plastic bag? She just puts them all. She's like, I'm just going to put all these guns in this plastic bag right here, which is hilarious. And then she's whipping it around. And that scene makes me so uncomfortable, too, because she doesn't know she has a real gun and she's flipping it around. It's just, I don't know, so funny.
I at one point wrote down, like, I feel like it's maybe not believable, some of the behaviors that she does, that those people wouldn't have simply jumped up or taken the gun from her sooner. But then there's another part of me that's like, yeah, they're the ones who assume it's a real gun, and they're actual criminals who use guns, and
she's being
therefore
crazy.
know how dangerous they can actually be. And if you've
Yeah.
got some really erratic woman, you don't necessarily want to, leap at her to try to grab the gun, because guns fucking go off and they kill people. So yeah,
Exactly.
I agree. I think that's probably absolutely accurate.
And then she shoots her husband. Again, her reaction, hysterical. Oh my God, I shot you.
She like throws it down.
Her acting in that moment
realistic.
is brilliant. It is
Yeah.
fantastic.
And then later she's doing, like, looking up YouTube videos on how to remove a bullet. And then the bullet went through him the whole time. It wasn't even there.
Oh my god.
That's funny. That's funny.
And I don't know why. I don't know what it was about this in that scene, but I love the fact that like she wanted to get like alcohol to like sterilize the wound. She's like, they don't sell hard liquor, so I got like a Chardonnay.
Champagne. Like, showing an absolute misunderstanding of the purpose and what that's gonna do. I literally was just like, oh my god, that's gonna like make it so much worse. I wrote down.
Yeah.
So funny.
That's gonna hurt so bad, and it's not gonna like provide any value.
Then they start showing every couple's like approach to game night, and I call him the creepy white guy, but not the police guy, the other creepy white guy with the Irish woman who's always got like the influencers. He's just creepy looking to me. But when he starts like bribing Chelsea with he just slowly slides the money across, then adds a 1. And you know what's wild is we were watching Only Murders in the Building, the brand new season, last week.
Uh-huh.
And Steve Martin does that same bit where he slowly slides.
It's the same
a
amount
10,
almost, yeah.
And then an 11 and an 11, a 1. And I'm like, this has been done. Game night did it better.
Yeah.
So funny.
Another note that I want to make sure I say, because we've also hit on the humor of it, but then also the scariness of it. They made a conscious choice. I don't know that I picked up on the first time. It maybe just feels uncanny valley or something, but every time there's an establishing shot, they have these like seemingly crane shots that come into the city or come into the room. But every one of those shots, it's actually like, I don't know if it's CG or if it actually is models, but it's done in such a way that it's as if it were like little model homes, like the movie Beetlejuice or like other horror movies of this ilk. You would have these sort of model homes would actually be what's making them up, or model trains. I thought that was a brilliant cinematic choice to sort of, again, there's just all these things that are communicating that it's this like suspense horror movie, almost in the Alfred Hitchcock sort of family, but then so much levity and so much humor. It really is an intelligent movie that does that.
Yeah.
And
And I even like, I don't remember if it's the actual end of the movie or if it's like during the credit scenes where they're showing Gary, the police officer's like basement where he's got like all of the like stuff all planned out, and he's got the little painted like characters like in scenes. Where like, to me, like, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but like where like it almost felt like those were tied in, like those shots throughout the movie where it's like those could be like the different scenes in his basement as part of the planning out the
storyboard,
the big deception.
Yeah.
I don't know that my brain made that connection. I love that. Yeah.
Gary, okay, that man. The scene in his house where they're like, yeah, we're gonna play Gary. And
Gary.
the shot is intentionally where there's two guns behind his head the whole time, right? Did you notice that?
Yeah.
And then he has a framed picture of last game night.
And I love that someone comments and he just very, very straight face goes, doesn't everyone have pictures of their best friends up in their house?
Yeah.
So scary. And the one thing that I did remember from this movie that I think about a lot is the dang dog scene where he's just bleeding all over the dog, and he's trying to wipe his blood off the dog. It's making the dog pink.
He's like, oh, that's so much worse.
And then the Gary Loves Debbie memorabilia just gets splattered in blood. Poor Gary.
Poor Gary. He really is such a like, I don't know what like just a sympathetic character. You feel for him as you realize what his actual life story is. And
But then, okay, so in the world of the movie, is that what his actual life story is? Or is he supposed to be scheming the whole time? Like, because, he comes in, he wants to be the hero, but then he gets shot. I don't know. It's, that's where he's the big character where they do a big switch.
Yeah.
And you don't see it coming. You, like, root for him, then you're scared of him, then you root for him because he comes and saves him, and then you're like, what the hell, Gary? You set this whole thing up, and then he gets shot in real life.
And then you're once again wondering, like, is this real? Is this another setup? Is it? Yeah.
No, I actually liked that at the end, like, it's revealed that, like, he was setting that whole thing up, because, like, throughout the whole movie, he's a character that's, like, I sympathize with, but he's also, like,
I would not invite him to game night. I don't know what to tell you.
It's so uncomfortably weird and awkward, and like to at the end see this reveal that he like set this whole thing up, like was kind of humanizing of him as a character, where it's like, oh, okay, he can, like, he's still weird, but he can kind of hang, like.
It's humanizing, but also then do you not think to yourself like, what the fuck human being would?
Yeah.
They're out there. I will say the couple that's Lamorne and the woman that we didn't say her name, she's not in anything else. I wish they had more to do, because their story was very much like, you slept with Denzel. Like, they just brought it back so many times. And to me, Lamorne is such a dear character actor. I love him so much. And so I feel like he didn't get a ton to do. But when the reveal comes out of, it was Denzel, and it's this guy with this giant-ass nose. It's just very funny.
The actress's name is Kylie Bunbury.
I mean, she's a very beautiful woman.
She's a beautiful woman. I thought she did a fantastic job. I don't have any reason why she wouldn't have had a career of more well-known roles, but she did not have anything that I knew her from other than this movie. So.
Yeah, but their storyline got a little old.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, the reveal of the fake Denzel was a funny bit, but it was one of those things where it's like, maybe you drew that out too long for what the ultimate punchline was.
Yeah. And then the creepy white guy with the Irish woman, sorry, I can't remember any of their names. When he's like...
the character's name is Ryan.
Ryan, yes. Oh, yes. That makes sense. When he's like, I told you there was rich guys fight club. So satisfying. And then he just walks over and grabs the egg. Oh, man.
Only
funny.
a white man.
So, what else do I have?
Speaking of the Rich Guy Fight Club, I made a note here that again, because we've got, and I have to look up the actor's name, Danny Houston, plays the said rich guy who has the egg in his vault and is hosting said fight club. He at one point says,
Wait, is this Ares? That's not the guy from Wonder Woman?
he is the guy from Wonder Woman.
Who you think is Ares, but it's not Ares.
Correct.
Okay. Keep going.
That actor is also in X-Men Origins Wolverine. And so I noted the fact that his prize fighter that he brings out, he says, and this is Logan.
Oh.
And I thought to myself, I wonder if that's an intentional nod, because he would have already at this point played the Stryker, I think is the name of the character in X-Men, where he's somebody ruling over Wolverine, a.k.a. Logan.
Dang. So, cool.
Also, that Fabergé egg scene was so much fun. Admittedly, moments were very unbelievable in terms of whether they, but I thought it was really cool how they shot that as well, with the like making it seem as if it were one continuous shot. Yeah.
Yep.
And then I forgot, they break the egg, and we both went, but they didn't want the egg. They wanted the list. So then the real bad guys come out, and there's, the ending epic scene. We didn't really talk about the brother too much, but that's because he's kind of just like the catalyst for all of this to happen, I feel like. But the other thing I did recall, and I looked away this time from the movie when we watched it the first time, is when the guy gets sucked into the the propeller.
I cackled at that. I do not find that as disturbing as I find the bullet or the dog scene for some reason. Like, I just find it hilarious.
And another great line from Rachel McAdams. She goes, "Yes! Oh, he just died."
Yeah, I do have that note. She goes, "Oh no, he died." Her delivery. Oh, man.
It's very funny.
So good.
They also bring back the charades. Charade it to me. And then,
Yes.
very, very good. Jason Bateman says, "You put a knife right in my bullet hole."
Which is just, it's one of those lines where if it's not delivered perfectly, just like people are like, oh, like this is too silly.
Yeah.
And it's just so, it's done just the right way to be hilarious.
Yeah, I think that's a theme across this whole movie too. It's like there's so many things that, like, if they weren't executed perfectly, would have just been like, oh, this is dumb and cringy. But it was just like the way that they executed it was perfect. Even like them climbing through the windows at the beginning, where it's like the first couple does it, and you're like, oh, that's kind of funny. But then they like immediately cut to another window, and
Yeah, and there's a moment where I don't feel like they over-delivered the way they did with the Denzel joke, because they did it 2 or 3 times to be genuinely a jump scare. And then they were like, okay, we've done the jump scare. Now we're just going to have everyone climbing into windows and make it funny.
The only line I did not appreciate, which I didn't know if it was supposed to be funny or not, but she goes, "I have kids at home." And then he said, "Not with that ass, you don't." Right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So she's supposed to not have kids.
Because it would be impossible for her to have that butt.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I took offense to that.
As a woman who just had kids and is, focused on her fitness, I understand why.
I on that one too.
Yeah. It is one of those things where you wonder to yourself, we've done a lot of movies on this podcast that are, 20 years or older, and you think, oof, things that were socially acceptable as funny at this time do not hit the same way anymore. And so the fact that, after 5+ years, this movie only has maybe one line, I'll give it credit.
No, it
for
had
that.
one other line that aged it, and it was a reference to Cecil the Lion. And I literally forgot. Do you guys remember him?
No, I missed that reference.
If this is before Harambe, then I wouldn't know.
It was the pre-Harambe. It was like a dentist went and murdered that lion and then took a picture of it, and everyone was like, "Justice for Cecil." Exactly. See, we don't even remember this, but like at the time, that would have been hysterical.
When you say murdered, you mean went on like a big game expedition and hunted a lion, right? To be clear.
Wait.
So Ryan putting all his cards on the table.
Animal murder.
All I'm saying is that it funds a lot of wildlife protection.
Killing lions? Are
We
we?
can go down
What
that
are we
rabbit
gonna?
Look at our adorable cat.
Making note to cut this out.
I am not condoning killing big cats, but the existence of a legal large game hunting industry in especially parts of Africa creates an incentive for the locals to ensure that there's an adequate population of those big cats for there to be hunters. It also encourages them to like do something about the poachers so that this industry continue to exist, and it brings in a lot of funding that allows them to do other conservation efforts.
Well, I'm gonna call Carol Baskins. I'm gonna give her your name, Ryan Reetz.
No, she'll kill me and we'll never find my body.
You'll be dumped somewhere in the Florida Everglades, or
I'll be fed to big cats.
oh man.
Anyways, okay, so
So, oh no, he died. I will say, I thought it was a really cute bookend, the way that they had the montage at the beginning with ending in the proposal, and the cute way that he did it, the proposal in charades with the game. And then at the very end, he again does
she does.
She does. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does the baby announcement. The same way. I thought that was a great way to kind of bookend the two pieces of the movie.
Okay.
Yeah, that was cute.
I only have one last question on the movie.
Oh,
Before the credits roll and you see Gary's basement, people pull up to their game night, and pull out guns and put on gloves. Am I making that up?
No,
that
that's
happens.
real.
Okay, so what is that? Was that like them setting up a sequel, or?
I don't know.
I never interpreted it as setting up a sequel. I interpreted it as the very last. You don't know what's real and what's not. Like, is this like another fake kidnapping game night, or is this like literally someone coming to finish the job because what's his name like sold a bunch of people out in order to like get parole? Because if you made me choose, I would guess it was the latter. But I think that's just like they're leaving you in that suspense of like, is it real? Which is a theme throughout the movie.
Yeah, it's just a wild ending.
yeah. I will say, because I've had a lot of positive things to say about this movie, that I think they land it perfectly. I wonder if the intent of that was to be like other horror movies, where kind of what you're saying, Erica, like you don't know, like, or the monster's hand comes reaching out of the lake at the very end. It's just that last, whatever the threat has been for your whole horror movie is still around. And in this case, the threat was this sort of uncertainty of whether it's a game or whether it's real. But I agree. I thought when I watched it that it seemed like it was setting up for a sequel. And I thought to myself, like, where's the sequel? I would watch that.
I would watch that.
Yeah.
I went through all my notes. Do you all have any last thoughts or things that you want to bring up that we didn't touch on?
No, I don't think so.
I don't either. It reinvigorates. I will. One last thing. It makes me want to bring back more game nights. I feel like we used to do a lot of game nights, and COVID kind of like killed that. I don't think it's come back, and we've got so many games. We've got shelves of games. So.
I feel like, there was this like digital game night where people were doing things like the Jackbox games or other things, and then once we were able to be physically in the same space again, we stopped doing those types of things. But we haven't. But you still, for whatever reason, haven't picked back up, or at least our friend group hasn't picked back up the game night. Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that.
All right, put it on record. It's recorded. There must be more
right.
game nights.
Game nights.
Because we need to win.
Stop touching the sound.
All right. Well, with that, then we will get into our heart ratings and would you renew your vows question. So, listeners, Reetz's, the heart ratings is meant to be a more or less objective sense of how good you think the movie is. 0 to 5, 5 being, best rock star movie, couldn't get better, perfect. 0 being terrible. I don't think anyone, I don't think we've ever had, no, I take that back. You tried to give a 0 very recently, but basically speaking, no one who ever chooses the movie is going to give it a 0. And then the question becomes, would you renew your vows? And that's kind of probably more on us, but it sounds like the two of you, we already know their answer. I'll go ahead and start just so that, I can get it out of the way. I will say, I think we've even pulled me up. So I'd already written down 4, and I think I'm going to go to a 4.25. I think this movie is criminally underrated because it is near perfect in so many ways, and it just doesn't get credit for it. It was one of those movies that I think even at the time, like we both our love stories were like we kind of stumbled upon it. It wasn't really being talked about, and I think it should be. So I'm gonna give it a 4.25. And yes, I would renew my vows. I will probably wait a couple more years again, because then the joy of this movie is you kind of forget exactly what the twists are, and then you just get to experience them again. So that's where I'm sticking.
Basically the exact same. Would I renew my vows? Yes, once I forget. But to be fair, I'm going to forget like in 2 weeks. And I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. This is a delightful movie. I liked it. I tee-hee-heed a ton, and it had me captivated the whole time. I didn't even want to look at my phone.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a ringing endorsement.
Yeah. Yeah.
I give it a 4.5. I think, we talked about a couple of things where could have been a little bit better. It's hard for me to give a movie a 5. It's hard for me to give a 5 out of 5, but overall it was great. And yeah, we will definitely watch it again.
Yeah, I agree. I'm hesitant to give it a high rating because I think part of what makes it so great is that it does kind of fly under the radar, and you go into it not really thinking it's going to be anything amazing, and then it is. But I do think it's a really well executed movie. It's a movie we've watched, I don't know, 5 times and still laugh really hard when we watch it. So I think a 4.25, 4.5, and we'll definitely watch again. Also, like when we can't remember enough of like which twists and turns are real. Yeah.
All right. Well, to level set for us, just out of curiosity, because I was thinking to myself about it being underrated. It does get an 85% on Tomato Meter and a 66 out of 100 on Metascore. So
Is that good?
66 out of 100. Metascore tends to be a little bit more harsh. So yeah, I would say that's pretty decent. You know, you can also view it as like that's, you know, a low C or a high D kind of thing. And you know, that's average as opposed to under average, but also not above. 85, I think, is quite good, actually, for Tomato Meter.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for picking an enjoyable movie. The last movie we watched, I did give a 0.
She brought it up.
hated it.
She brought it up from there, but yeah, she did not enjoy it. She was not a fan.
Yeah, would not recommend.
I suspect I know the answer, but Reetz's, do you have anything that you would like to plug or share? Anything you're doing that you want the internet to know about or follow you for?
The internet does not need to follow me. They'll just be disappointed.
If anyone out there in the internet is planning a wedding and wants recommendation on vendors, I'm about to publish a bunch of reviews on socials for all of the amazing vendors that we worked with. So you can follow along if that's your thing. But yeah, otherwise I'm no social. I don't have that much of a social media presence.
Are we also going to publish the one vendor that we would give more explicit directions around how to work with?
We will be clear-eyed and have full hearts in all of the reviews that we post.
All right. So for those who are planning weddings, Erica, what social media handles will that be posted to?
It's on Instagram. It's at ChiBear. So CHI___BEAR.
Whoa, there's double underscore.
Yeah, there already was a ChiBear 1 underscore, so we had to go for 2.
Isn't it Shy Bear?
Yeah.
Danny, do you have anything to plug?
I'm gonna say Shy Bear. People are gonna think it's like
Like a little shy bear.
like a little Shy Bear.
A shy guy.
Yeah, it's like Chicago,
Yeah.
but not like the Chicago Bears. Just to be clear.
No one would try to associate with them.
Was that who Chai Bear 1 was with 1 underscore?
It was the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears.
Duh, Bears.
Never mind.
Anything to
I
plug?
was going to say it was probably other bears in Chicago. I know a lot of other bears in Chicago. Where can you find me? Y'all, I'm back in comedy October when this comes out.
Yep.
I am back hitting the main stage for the first time since popping out a child.
Hey.
Oh yeah.
So, Comedy Sports Fridays and Saturday nights, you can find me. Follow me at Danny Miami 4.
All right.
That was not a joke. That's really where you can find me.
I know, but you were talking about comedy, so
Okay. You need to work on your comedy.
I've been failing making my wife laugh this month. Anyway, you can follow me at Nic Loves Movies. That's NICLUV Love Nic Loves Movies on Instagram and Twitter and Letterboxd. I really like talking about Letterboxd, and I like to rate the different movies that we watch sometimes on there, so follow me there. You can follow us as a social media platform on just about everything, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Blue Sky. Search for In Love with Movies, and our handles are at the letter N, Love with Movies, all spelled out, so that is at In Love with Movies, and we'll see you all there. And with that, I love you, Dani.
I love you, Nick.
And we love you, Reetz's. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having us. It was
Thanks.
a pleasure.
Goodbye.
We love you, listeners. Bye-bye.
Oh, were we supposed to say that too? Bye. In love with movies. We did it!